Can you guys give me a confirmation if somebody can hear me? I'm up on top of a mountaintop up here, and I have a pretty good phone reception, but I'm using a little bit different mic setup. So can you just shoot me a confirmation that you guys have good audio? Hopefully. Looks like we got a few people on there. Yeah, I've got a mic hooked up, kind of a shotgun mic. Awesome, DMR dude. Thank you for confirming that. Okay, cool. So sounds like we got some audio. Awesome. There's Asa Lee Meadows. Good to see you, my friend. Let's see, who all do we have on here? Steve, Overland PE. Good. Audio and video looking good. Frank, hello from Texas. Good. Glad to hear the video looks good too. Yeah, as you guys know, I really much prefer to do these Sunday Camp Talk lives out in the field. So this is really cool. I did a little bit of scouting today. I'm actually up on top of this mountain. It's kind of a point. It's a peak out on this ridge line where actually earlier this afternoon back over there, I've been exploring this whole set of mining ruins there. So I was filming quite a bit of video on that. So that'll be one of my next videos that'll come out. But it's kind of a little known place. It's not a long ways from town, but there's a good little bit of history. There's the mines, actually several mines going up this ridge line, and then the associated cabins and camps and everything along the way. Greetings from Houston, Lebanon, wow. Oregon Squatch, still here. How's it going, my friend? Dean Moore, how's it going? Jerry, Mark Taniguchi, the man, is here. That is awesome, bro. So happy to see you, man. Hangfire, awesome, my friend. Angie Jensen, how's it going, Angie? Victor Castillo, JL2 Off-Road, awesome. Good to see you guys here again. So anyway, looks like we've got some people showing up. I've got a pretty good little amount of wind here, but let me just see. Let's see. I'm going to try to flip the camera around because I just want to show you guys what it's looking like up here. So real quick, I just want to show you. This is what I'm looking at as I'm sitting right up here on this mountaintop, looking out over just these phenomenal views here. So that might have been a little bit of a shaky camera work there, but I wanted to show you guys what my setting is like. So I'm staring off at this just amazing view here, and we got a nice little breeze this afternoon up here. Got the grandpa's truck behind me, as you guys can see, and oh, let's see. Let me get a couple of business items out of the way. All right, you guys. So those of you guys that have been here for a while, you guys know the drill, man. Oh, awesome. Who is that? Oh, I missed it, man. First, super chat. Land, gas, or pew pew fund. Awesome. Travis Hudson. Hey, Travis, man. By the way, the pew pew fund. So one of my show and tells tonight is going to be I got a new sidearm here, and it's a little bit of a unique Glock. So I'm going to tell you guys about that during the show and tell tonight. So, business stuff first. So the super chats, that's awesome. If you guys have questions, I'll try to really pay attention for those super chats when they pop up and make sure that I get your questions answered or your comments responded to. I kind of try to watch all of them, but it's a little bit tough out here sometimes with the glare and everything on the screen. But really appreciate the super chats. As you guys know, the super chats and then the PayPal donations, I've got a PayPal donate link in the description down below. But those are really the two main monetary supports for my channel. So I just want to say up front how much I appreciate all of those super chats and all of those PayPal donations. The PayPal direct donations, I also usually run some credits and thank the guys in my regular videos. I list all of the people who make contributions to my PayPal. And one thing I want to tell you guys, because I always forget this, is when you make contributions to that PayPal link, there's a little comment box in there. And if you want me to shout out in my video when I do the credits to everybody that donates to that, if you want me to do a shout out to like a YouTube channel or an Instagram page or like your business, if you got a little business wherever you're at across the country, if you got a little like deck and siding business or heating and cooling business or whatever, like my friend Dana Barish that has the Pure Romance business, or you know, whatever it is, any of you guys that do PayPal donates, if there's a comment or a shout out or something, as long as it's sort of appropriate, I don't want to do but what'll happen is if you leave something in that little comment when you do the PayPal donate, then on my next trip video, my next, you know, pre-recorded edited video that comes out, I'll roll that message or that comment on the screen. So that's kind of cool. I've had some boys from Texas that leave some cool comments and stuff like that, but you just have to let me know that you want me to shout it out. So there is that. Also wanted to tell you guys that the now live on the Lolo Overland Outfitters website is the Coyote Den. And we're just kind of in the initial stages of it, but basically the Coyote Den on there has all of the gear that you can get at Lolo Overland that I use in my loadout. So chances are, if there's something that you've seen in my videos, if they carry it at Lolo Overland, it'll be in that Coyote Den. So I get so many questions about the tables and chairs and all of that stuff that I use that that we decided to do, my brother Daniel and Josh over there at Lolo, we decided to just do a Coyote Den. So just know that every piece of gear in that Coyote Den is a piece of gear that I use on a regular basis. And one thing that I always like to tell you guys too is that, you know, as far as you guys all know that the Lolo Overland Outfitters guys are my brothers, but every piece of gear that you see in my videos is a piece of gear that I've chosen because it works for me and the way that I overland and explore and truck camp and all of that kind of stuff. So basically I just share the information on the gear I use because I know so many of you are interested in it. So I think that's most of the business stuff, the super chats, the PayPal donates, Coyote Works merchandise also, that's all available at Lolo Overland, and that also helps me out a bunch too. So yeah, and we got new patches in. I'm not sure how many we have left. I haven't checked this weekend, but they were going pretty fast. Also, something I'm really excited about is we've got a Coyote Works basic tee. It's just an olive drab, thick cotton t-shirt that has the stacked Coyote Works logo on it. And Daniel, my brother, if you're on here, you need to get one of those my way in a large too, because I've been waiting for one of those shirts. So yeah, man, I hope you guys are all having an awesome weekend and you got a beverage of choice sitting next to you. I'm working on, looks like I've got a peach infused hint is my beverage this evening, and man, it was warm today. I don't know how hot it got, but I bet it was in the 80s or something like that. Oh, let's see, Caldo Wolf, howdy my friend, always good to see you, and thank you for the support, man. Any of you guys that don't know, if you want to chat back and forth with Caldo, he's a regular on my channel, good supporter, man, super cool guy, man. We've had some messages back and forth. Oh man, Cougar something. Let me see what this was. Cougar Mountain said it's 81 in Eugene. Wow, that's crazy. Oh, Andy, an outdoors guy. How you doing, my friend? Yeah, I knew he messaged me on Instagram, and I knew he was making a trip out this way this weekend. So hopefully, man, your trip went good. Hope you enjoyed it. At least the weather was beautiful. So one thing I thought I'd chat with you guys about today is because it's spring and the weather's finally starting to get consistently really warm, is I get tons of questions about like how do I deal with mosquitoes, ticks, rattlesnakes, scorpions, like that's the ugly side of nice weather overlanding and car camping. So as you guys know, well, I think so. I mean, I've talked about this before, is how much I enjoy the wintertime, camping in the wintertime, just for that reason. There's no bugs, no rattlesnakes, no scorpions, none of that stuff to deal with. And interestingly enough, I was out yesterday afternoon. I was out for a little walk, kicking around a old homestead, and by the end of the day, I had five ticks on me. Like 4 of them while I was out in the field, on my body, on my clothing, one on my neck. And then when I got home and I was changing out of my clothes, I had another tick that was inside my shirt. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about, a few of the things I do to kind of keep those sorts of things at bay. So I'll start with the ticks first of all, because that's one thing that I mean, I don't like ticks at all, but a lot of people are like really, really, really don't like ticks. So as far as repellent, what I use is I use this Sawyer, and I've been using this for years. You guys have probably even seen it in some other videos, but I use this Sawyer. This is a permethrin insect repellent, and this is what I've found works best for ticks. Now the thing is, like, how you use this is like at the beginning of the season, you basically spray down like your shoes and even like your pants or your clothing that you're going to wear outside. So you basically treat your clothing items with this permethrin spray, and then it not only acts as a tick repellent, but it actually will kill ticks too. So what I really make sure that I do is I really coat my boots that I wear. So in the summertime, I wear either my Danner Tachyons or I wear the Ultima Maritime Assault boots. So I basically just soak them with permethrin, and then I usually do like 2 or 3 pairs of pants that I wear in the outdoors too. I'll soak with permethrin. Now, the permethrin will actually last for a couple of times of washing like those pants and usually get me through the tick season. So the thing about ticks, at least in my part of the country here, is they're really bad in the very early spring. Like as soon as the temperature starts getting consistently above freezing, there's usually like a month or so window in there where the ticks are the worst. And then they kind of die off as the summer goes on. So usually the reason I bring that up is because I can treat my boots and a couple of pairs of pants, and usually by the time the permethrin wears off those things, I'm through the tick season. So I'm pretty well taken care of. The other thing I will do with this is if I am out in the field and I'm in a tick area and I'm wearing clothing that hasn't been pre-treated with permethrin, is I'll just spray a little bit of this on my on my clothing. So this does a really good job of keeping the ticks at bay. Another thing is a lot of times where I pick up ticks is when I'm sitting around camp. Like right now, I'm sitting stationary in a chair, and so the ticks will find, they seek out like the warm-blooded mammals, and so they'll find you sometimes when you're stationary for a while. So every once in a while, if I'm in an area where the ticks are really bad, I'll just kind of spray a little area around my chair and everything if I'm going to be hanging out. Like in this case where I'm doing this video now, I'm up above where most of the cows and the deer and everything are, and I'm in a pretty dry area. So right here where I'm at, there shouldn't be too many ticks. But so that is the number one tip for keeping yourself free of ticks: is get a good permethrin insect repellent. And really, in my experience, like the uh, like DEET-based insect repellents aren't as effective against ticks. So the permethrin is the thing that in my experience, that you want to use for ticks. Okay, so what are some other things that you can do to kind of avoid ticks? Brian Peterson, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Everybody, give a shout out to Brian for the super chat contribution. Really appreciate that. Um, so a couple of other things for ticks. So number one is where they tend to be the thickest is where wildlife congregates or cattle congregate. So like in particular around here, like they seem to be bad like in the willows and like the creek bottoms where the deer go in and feed and water, and there's a little bit more moisture, and maybe because it's a little cooler in there, that seems to be a really good environment for ticks. See, now I'm talking about ticks and I feel like I have them crawling on me, which always happens, but I think I'm tick free. Um, so anyway, like especially when I'm kicking around like overgrown old homesteads and things like that, is a lot of times where I'll pick up a lot of ticks. So so that's one thing. Another thing is like here's just a couple other general tips for dealing with ticks. It's really easy to transfer them into your house, in your clothing. Like a lot of times you won't necessarily feel ticks on you. They'll get in your clothing and you'll end up transferring them home. So one thing I do is during the tick season is usually when I come home, I take my clothes off in the garage, bundle them up, and then put them right in the washing machine. So that if there's happens to be any ticks in my clothing or anything like that, they're just going right in the washing machine. I start the washer with detergent and everything and then flush them all down. Another tip, something that I do that I'm going to stand back so you guys can see, is I always wear multiple layers of clothing. And one thing that I do is I always wear like an under t-shirt, and I do that for two reasons. One, because it kind of protects my body and my handgun, but also having a shirt tucked in, that just makes it harder for like ticks and bugs and things like that to find their way into my clothing. Now, I know that may not be something that everybody wants to do, but for me, that's one thing that just helps me feel really confident that I'm not getting ticks inside. And I can't tell you guys how many times like I've got ticks on my white t-shirt, but they haven't got through to where my skin is. So that's something that I do. I also almost always wear long pants when I'm out camping and stuff like that. Like you guys have probably, I would venture a guess is that you've maybe never seen me in a video in shorts when I'm out camping, because ticks and things can easily get up the legs of shorts, and I definitely do not want ticks anywhere near my groin or my midline section, anything like that. Like that just gives me the heebie-jeebies thinking about that. Oh, my buddy Tucker, I just see on there, is trying to decide between the Odyssey and the Evolution rooftop tent. I just saw that. I just saw that comment on there, man. I'll tell you really quick, Tucker. What I've found, the main difference between the Odyssey and the Evolution, they're both really easy to set up. The Odyssey is a little bit lower profile on top of the vehicle, which is really cool in a lot of respects. Also, the Odyssey, if you put the rack on top of it, you can put a lot more weight on top of the Odyssey hardshell tent. So that's the benefit that the Odyssey has going over it, is the way that it opens up, the way it hinges on one side and the top lifts up like this, you can have a lot of weight on your rack, a lot of extra fuel, extra water, max tracks, all that kind of stuff, which is super handy to be able to utilize that space up on top of your vehicle, right? So that's the Odyssey, is you can put a lot more weight on the rack. The downside to the Odyssey is you cannot fit much for bedding inside it, meaning you can't close the rooftop tent down with very much. Now, I was able to close mine with like a 35-degree sleeping bag in it, and that's it. Anything more than that, and you're just putting too much pressure on the hinges and everything when you're trying to collapse it down. So, upside to the Odyssey, you can put a lot on the roof rack. So if that's important to you, if space is at a premium and you really want to be able to put gear up on the roof rack, like maybe even a kayak or something like that, then I would definitely go with the Odyssey series tent. The downside is you're going to sacrifice the ability to be able to put a lot of bedding inside and leave it. Now, flip over to the Evolution series. The Evolution series, you can put pillows and bedding and leave all of that stuff inside it. However, the way the Evolution opens up is it basically lifts straight up on the struts, right? So you can't have a lot of weight on top of it and open it up. So what that means, if you're putting stuff on top of the Evolution series tent, about the only thing I can leave up there and then open my tent is a set of max tracks. It'll handle that, but anything else, like a couple of gallons of water or whatever, you won't be able to open the tent up. So you have to take everything off the rack. So Evolution series, you can't put a lot of weight on the rack and open the tent, but you can fit your bedding inside it. So sorry about that. That wasn't really on the topic, but I saw that question and it actually comes up a lot. And both of those are awesome hardshell rooftop tents. They're both really easy to set up. They're both pretty low profile on top of the vehicle. The Odyssey is a little bit lower profile than the Evolution series, but I really love both of those tents. And honestly, for me, you know, was a real struggle to decide which one I wanted to land with. But ultimately, I chose the Evolution for my Jeep. All right, so we kind of got through the ticks thing. Another tip for the ticks is just the good old buddy system. Like, A lot of times ticks, I think what happens is when they burrow or they feed off of you, they release a little bit of something that makes it so you don't feel them when they're like biting or burrowing into you and feeding off of you. So having a buddy, somebody that can check you for ticks, is a pretty solid plan. Oh, hang on, let's see what else we got going on here. Awesome, Radical Ralph, appreciate it, my friend. Um, yeah, I'm glad you enjoy seeing the kind of the Eastern Oregon desert out here. So that's the deal for ticks. Now, the other question that I get a lot is about removing ticks when they do burrow into you, and there's just no easy answer for this. And I tell you guys, I've tried all the tricks in the book. I've tried coating them with Vaseline. I've tried coating them with dishwashing detergent. I've tried, like striking a strike anywhere wooden match, putting it out and then touching the tick to it, get them to back out. None of that stuff that I've ever tried has worked very consistently for me. The main thing is I just very, very gently, I just grasp the tick very, very gently and try to pull it straight back out. Don't twist or anything like that. And again, I'm not a doctor. I play one on my videos sometimes, but no, just kidding. I'm not a doctor. That's just what I've learned over the years. Usually if I can just kind of elevate the body a little bit, they're kind of flat. If I can just kind of elevate the body a little bit and then just gently pull a nice gradual steady pressure on them until they pop out, it's usually not that big of a deal. I will say that I have heard that they make these little tick puller things. They're kind of like a pair of tweezers that's shaped a certain way to hold the tick and pull it out. I've heard several people really rave about those, but I just don't have any experience with them. Hey, you guys let me know if you start getting too much wind noise. I have a little wind blocker rigged up here. Fat Dan says rubbing alcohol. That I actually have not tried, so that might be a good tip for you guys out there. Yeah, and that is one good thing. At least Lyme disease isn't super present around here. So that's the deal with ticks, and they just are not very much fun. But especially for me, where I go crawling around in brush looking for old history and stuff like that, they're just kind of a part of life out here. So you get used to them. Scott and Trina, how are you guys doing? Those are my friends down in Lakeview, Oregon. Sorry about that, guys. I just wanted to see what we have for comments and stuff here. Jamie Burke, what's happening, my friend? Dirt Bandit Outdoors is on. Okay, so Dirt Bandit had a comment. Get the buggers drunk with alcohol and they'll pop right out. All right, so that's my buddy Dirt Bandit Outdoors says that's a second one for using alcohol on the tick. So maybe I'll have to try that one. You know, interestingly enough, as many ticks as I find on my body and on my clothing, I rarely ever actually have one embedded in me. I don't know, maybe like once a year I'll have one. So that's the good news. Man, guys, that sun is now setting right in my eyes. I didn't plan my setup very well. So let's talk mosquitoes really quick, because that's another one that out in this high desert country, that's kind of again, it's usually a pretty narrow window of time, at least in the high desert. It's dry enough around here that we don't usually have too bad or too long of a mosquito season. But mosquitoes around here, something like 95 or 100% DEET, like Deep Woods Off or something like that, seems to be the most effective repellent for mosquitoes. For me personally, I like to use as little mosquito repellent as possible, especially when I'm out camping and it's not easy to shower a lot and stuff like that. You know, I just don't like putting all of that stuff on me. So what I'll tend to do is I'll tend to, you know, in the evening time, go ahead and throw on long sleeves, basically just cover up as much of my body as possible to keep the mosquitoes off me. The other thing is, having a fire, like the smoke from any kind of a fire, will really go a long ways towards keeping the mosquitoes at bay. And usually these are everywhere, but I do not happen to see a cow pie right handy. But one really good trick for keeping the mosquitoes at bay is you can take a dry cow patty. And usually they're everywhere around here because they graze cows around here. And they basically burn really well like a punk. So you can get a cow patty lit and then just lay it someplace out, like, where maybe the wind's kind of carrying it through kind of your camp area. And surprisingly enough, I know it sounds weird, but when they're a year old and they're dry, the smoke honestly doesn't smell any different than the smoke from grass or something like that. I mean, that's basically what they are, right? But the nice thing about those is they'll just kind of emit a little bit of smoke for a constant basis, and will burn like one, single decent sized cow pile. I mean, that thing will burn for 2-3 hours sometimes, just nice and slow, just smoking. What's up, Hike with Mike? I got a little bit of a glare, so it's hard for me to see the screen there, but wow. Luis Vargas from Costa Rica. So we've got somebody on from Costa Rica. Wow, man. Well, welcome from all the way halfway across I guess that's down on the South American continent. Blaine, Redmond. Oh man, yeah. So, all right, I'll try to touch on that later. I had another question or two about the get together. So that's kind of my deal for mosquitoes. A couple of other tips is this kind of goes back to how to pick a good camp spot, which I've talked about before too. So around here, definitely, where water is scarce in this country, the mosquitoes tend to be concentrated around water sources. And here is your big word for the day, especially septic water sources, right? Septic meaning water that's stagnant and not moving and decaying, has a lot of decaying material in it. So staying away from water sources that have, slow moving, stagnant, kind of septic ponds, things like that. Oh man. Oh, Dana and David, how are you guys, man? Good to hear from you. Yeah, so the big things with mosquitoes for me are really just keeping myself covered up, long sleeves. If I have to use some repellent, if they're really bad, I'll use 98% or 100% DEET repellent for mosquitoes. Now, I know there's some guys on here like Asa and Jacqueline that are like in areas like Minnesota and places like that where you guys have mosquitoes like nothing like I've got around here. So I'm thinking you guys probably are the experts or have the really good tips for mosquitoes. But staying away from water sources, and the other thing is they're usually only bad for a pretty small window of time in the evening. So that's the good news. Couple other pesky little things. Again, summer season camping things that I've had questions about. Actually, interestingly enough, had a couple of people ask me about scorpions. So scorpions, most of the ones we have around here aren't extremely deadly, right? But they can be really, really painful and definitely put a damper on your trip. So the thing about scorpions is they are, I see them moving around a lot at night, number one. So not walking barefoot at night around camp. And I'm going to talk to you guys about another tip that kind of relates to this a little bit later too. But not walking around barefoot. Scorpions, again, they're kind of worse in the spring and the earlier part of the summer. That's when you'll find the vast majority of them. One rule of thumb is they tend to want to get underneath things. So I've had them like crawl underneath the lid of a backpack before, or underneath a, even like something as benign as like you'll set a little piece of kit like this, like lay this on the ground and then reach down to pick it up and grab it, and there might be a scorpion underneath it. So you always want to watch kind of underneath things, like if you leave shoes out, they'll crawl inside shoes. So like, don't leave your shoes sitting outside of your tent. Like if you're sleeping on a ground tent, don't leave your shoes on the ground. If you do, make sure you turn your shoe upside down and shake it out in the morning. Make sure, what you don't want to do is you don't want to reach your hand in your shoe to feel anything in there, because there's two things that I've had in shoes before. One is scorpions, and I've actually had scorpions in shoes before a couple of times, but also black widow spiders. I don't know if you guys have those where you're at, but around here we have black widow spiders, and they're actually a lot more common than people realize. Mostly people just don't pay attention to them, but like in a spot where I'm at right here, like I've seen them like in cracks of rocks before. A lot of times, like, because I'm picking up old tin cans and stuff, I've picked up tin cans before and had a black widow spider be inside the tin can. So that's another thing that you want to beware of. So as far as the scorpions, be careful of underneath things. Now, rattlesnakes. Rattlesnakes is a big one in certain areas around here. We've got areas where we have a lot of them. So the big thing is to pay attention and listen for them. Like understand what they sound like, that buzzing sound, and like when you hear that buzzing when you're walking through the brush, just stop immediately. Figure out where the snake is before you move, right? Because I've had that situation before where like you're startled, you hear the buzzing, you're startled, and you move, and you might inadvertently move closer to the snake. They don't necessarily always buzz when you're approaching them like from in front of you, right? Like sometimes they didn't, depending on, you know, how softly you're walking or whatever, you know, sometimes they don't realize you're there until you're right on top of them. Especially like if it's a little bit cooler in the earlier part of the day or in the evening and they get caught out when the temperature drops. When the temperature starts getting down below like 70 degrees-ish or so, they start getting sluggish and lethargic. And I don't know exactly what, let's see, Sean Squatch PNW, good evening, my friend. Appreciate it. Yep, every little bit helps, man. I'll put that right in the gas tank. That's perfect. So anyway, the rattlesnakes, I would say the big thing is a couple of big tips. One of them is listen for them. When you hear that buzzing sound, you know, stop, figure out where it's coming from before you move fast or do anything rash, right? So another thing is that if you know you're in snake country and thick snake country, like obviously avoid places where you're walking through thick grass where you can't see the ground very well. When you are walking through places, and I'm going to tell you guys that a lot of times like rattlesnakes, when they can be laying right out in the open, and if they're perfectly still, like in this kind of ground out here, like you might just barely see them, and if you even see them at all. Luis Vargas, thank you, my friend, all the way from Costa Rica, man. I just did another trip with my Jeep too, man. So you guys I've got another video coming up that'll have you guys will see that I was out in the Jeep in the rooftop tent again. So one thing about the rattlesnakes too is they sense vibrations in the ground. They sense heat and they sense vibrations really well. So if you tend to make noise or like walk heavy, like heavy footfalls when you're walking through areas where there's thick brush or grass, that will tend to still here is asking if I can pop off a few rounds from my new Glock. You know what? I actually totally could pop off a few rounds from my new Glock, but I don't know. I'll have to check and see if I have any hearing protection with me, man, because that thing's loud. I'm going to show you guys it a little bit. It's a little bit of a different Glock than I normally shoot. So, yeah, that's a good call, man. I should make sure that I've got some ear pro with me. And so I can pop off a couple of rounds. All right, so yeah, so back to the rattlesnake. So the obviously the big things, making a lot of noise and then paying attention, listening for that buzz. The thing to know about rattlesnakes is for the most part, like it's amazing how many times over the years I've almost stepped on them and have never gotten bit. And I can tell you guys there's been lots of times when I've been well within range and could have easily gotten bit by a rattlesnake. There's a video which reminds me of something. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a guy called Aqua Chigger. He's this dude that does he does a lot of metal detecting videos. He's got like over 1 million subs. Older guy named Bo does a lot of metal detecting. He also does a lot of like, he goes diving in rivers and drags rivers and does metal detecting in rivers, finds a lot of Civil War stuff, a lot of historic stuff. So I watch him. Well, he had this one video where he actually was walking around in an area in an evening and heard some buzzing, didn't think anything about it, but, you know, because he's not in his part of the country, I don't think there are very many rattlesnakes, and this was like out in Arizona or something. He went back into that spot the next morning and he found a rattlesnake in there that had like a smashed head that was like dead but hadn't been dead very long. And so his theory is that he actually stepped on it and killed it when it was dark the night before, which is really interesting when you think about it, that he was able to walk right on top of that rattlesnake, in fact, to the point where he stepped on it and didn't get struck by it. So what I'm thinking is either it was cool in the evening and the snake was a little bit lethargic, or just one of those things where the snake wasn't aware that he was there until he stepped on it. But anyway, you know, the whole reason I bring that up is because really, for the most part, I think you have to really irritate a rattlesnake and you have to be right on top of it to get bit by it. I think they're a lot less prone to striking and biting people than you might think. Now, I'm not recommending this at all, and I just don't even mess around with them anymore. But like when I was young, every once in a while, you know, I would find one and I would like get a long stick and try to like yard it out from underneath the rocks or something like that and kind of mess around with it a little bit. And I remember, you know, even doing that way back in the day, or a lot of times I'd use a shovel. It was always really difficult to get them to strike at stuff. I always wanted to watch them strike, but it was always tough to get them to strike. So I don't think rattlesnakes are as big of a worry as a lot of people seem to think. Having said that, I'm right there with you guys in that I do not like rattlesnakes at all. And I tend to be on high alert and on edge when I'm in country that has a lot of rattlesnakes in it. Whew, all right. Let me look at my notes here real quick. So, man, I got to tell you guys, this is really nice out here, and it's been actually nice dropping down to doing these Camp Talk Lives every other week. Has given me the ability to be able to stay out a little bit later on those weekends in between. But having said that, man, I miss you guys. I actually really enjoy these chats, and look forward to seeing you guys on here. Dog versus snakes. What's my stance on snake aversion training for dogs? Well, so when I was young growing up in this country, you know, this is cowboy country. I grew up around horses and stock dogs and cows and stuff like that. I was around quite a few dogs that got bit by rattlesnakes. The only thing we ever used to do was sometimes give them Benadryl to keep their airways from closing up. But for the most part, like dogs and cows and horses seem to have a pretty good resistance to snake bites. So I knew there's one old rancher that had a dog that I got rattlesnake bit repeatedly, like multiple times a season. That dog would get bit by rattlesnakes, and it would basically get really lethargic, and it would go like lay down underneath the porch. It would disappear, lay underneath the porch, and then, you know, come out like later that evening or something, and it seemed to be fine. So, oh, I think I missed something. Hike with Mike. Okay, so Jacob Slawbaugh, sorry, I'm sure I'm butchering your last name, my friend, asked what size tires I run on my Jeep. So, great question, man. And a question that I get asked all the time, so I'll throw that out here. So I run on both my Jeep and my pickup. I run the same size tires. That way I can swap them out or interchange them if I want. And I'm running 285/70/17. So the Nitto Trail Grapplers, I think they measure out just over 33 inches in height, and I can't remember what that width is. I want to say it's probably somewhere around 11 and a half inches or something like that, maybe 11 inches, something like that. So I run 285/70/17s, and I feel like that's the perfect size tire for what I do. Man, I'm like anyone else. Like, I think, you know, 35s, 37s, I think look badass. I love the look of, Jeeps with 35s on them and a little bit more of a lift and everything. It's just that for what I do, with as many miles and everything, I'm looking for that balance between keeping the weight and the drag and the load and everything down as much as I can on my vehicle, and having enough capability to do what I want. So for me, I feel like between a 33 and a 34-inch tire is like kind of the perfect balance there, or the best balance there, if you will. Gives me that little bit extra height, lets me roll over some bigger obstacles and stuff like that, but it doesn't drag me down too much. My philosophy with my loadouts, my camping loadouts in my vehicles, is real similar to backpacking, right? Like a lot of people have heard the expression when it comes to backpacking that ounces equal pounds and pounds equal pain, right? And basically what that means is it means that, it's easy when you're packing your backpack to be fine with a couple of extra ounces here and a couple of extra ounces there. But all those couple of extra ounces add up, and they add up to pounds. So pretty soon you've got a couple of extra pounds worth of weight in your pack. Well, I kind of look at vehicle loadouts the same way, in that I really, really try to minimize. See, we've been talking about ticks, and now I feel like, oh, it's a little bug. It's actually not a tick, but it was a little bug crawling on me. Anyway, so I kind of apply the same philosophy to my vehicle loadout, and I really try to minimize all the drag, all the extra weight, and everything I can. So, tires and wheels is just one more of those things that the difference in weight between a set of 33s and a set of 37s can be pretty significant. Let's see. Oh man, that's awesome. American Scout left a comment on there that I'm the only YouTube channel that he's ever donated to, man. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate that. That's super cool. And hopefully you guys know, man, the part of what your guys' what I like to say, man, is that my channel is funded by you guys, right? It's your you guys buying my merchandise. It's you guys doing these super chat contributions, and you guys doing the PayPal donate contributions. That's all the monetary contribution. I get a little bit of ad revenue from YouTube, but let's face it, with guns and the stuff that I do, like very little, I get very little ad revenue from YouTube. So the cool thing is, man, you guys are what lets me keep producing this content for you guys without any like corporate sponsorship. So like my brothers up at Lolo Overland, they keep me in gear, but there's no obligation for me to like sell anything or hawk anything or anything like that. Same thing, Free Spirit Recreation, great company. You guys know they provide me with my rooftop tents, but I don't receive money from any gear company out there, from any corporate sponsorship out there. So, man, that keeps it so that you guys know that whatever you're seeing me using is stuff that I'm using because it's good gear, etc. So anyway, my whole point is just that those contributions, I mean, you guys basically fund this channel. You guys make this content happen and keep it independent, free. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, it's nice to get some YouTube revenue, but you guys support me, so I don't have to toe YouTube's line all the time and stuff like that. So anyway, man, that's just really cool to have that support from you guys, and hopefully you appreciate it and get to reap some of the benefits of it through my content too, and not having that kind of corporate influence to it. So anyway, that was tires, man. That was a little bit about the hazards. Let me just check and see, do we got any questions about hazards or things like that out here? Let me just take a quick peek at my let's see. All right, DJ Hobbies and Overland. I like his comment, man. I've got an idea. Josh Rue, thank you, my friend. Let's see. Josh's question is, have I ever used a propane fire pit during fire season? I haven't ever used a propane fire pit, or the other thing is you know, I've seen some of these raised bed charcoal fire pits. I was looking, actually, I think Josh had a Covea one up at Lowell Overland that I was looking at. But also, my buddy Mike, Occasional Overland on Instagram, he's got like a BioLite stove that I think you can either put wood in or charcoal up off the ground. Obviously, during some fire seasons, during some fire danger levels, you're not going to be able to use that. But no, I actually kind of like the idea of a propane fire pit, especially if it's something that you can use that extends, that you can use into the fire danger season. We're having a really, really dry year out here this year. In fact, fire season just started last week, and I think this is the earliest that fire season has officially started in my area in something like 30 years or something like that. So it's just crazy. We haven't had hardly any spring rain. Oh, let's see. Scott Sattler. Yo, Casey, the Coyote Works merch link on my YouTube channel. Oh, the merch link is broken? Okay, well, I'll have to see if I can fix that. Stand by, guys. After I get off this live stream, I'll go in there and I'll see what I did. All right. So I got people asking about the new Glock. So I guess it's time for us to do a little bit of show and tell, right? Oh yeah. And Lulu7 says for the land fund, does a super chat contribution for the land fund and says, show us the Glock. All right, so here's the deal, guys. So I got a new Glock, and you've probably heard me say before, when it comes to handguns, 9mm, I just years ago called it good and went with 9mm with everything. But I've been kind of eyeing the 10mm because I wanted something a little bit bigger for backwoods carry. And the idea being something that had a little bit more knockdown power, maybe for, I might have a better chance of stopping like a black bear or something like that. So I got a 10mm Glock, and oh gosh, on the video you cannot really hardly tell the difference between those two rounds, can you? But the 10mm is this one over here, and the 9mm is this one over here. So the 10mm is significantly bigger than the 9mm. I don't know if you guys can see that, but the size of the capacity of the case and everything, and the recoil and everything, is the muzzle energy and everything is significant. So that's it. I got the 10mm Glock. This is actually the Glock 20, and I just got a very basic one, and I'm thinking about actually having it tricked out a little bit. Just so you guys can see, it's clear. You can see daylight through there. No round in the chamber. I do have a full magazine right there, of course, so I'll set that out of the way. But basically, I just got the standard basic model because I'm going to swap out the sights and everything on it. What I like is either a fiber optic or kind of a bright night sight on the front, and then a blacked out rear sight, just a completely blacked out rear sight. I'm tempted to maybe even, I think it might be kind of a cool idea to actually have this slide milled and run an RMR on it. So one thing that is really, let me see if I can show you guys this, but the slide on that 10mm is significantly thicker than the 9mm, right? So this is my Glock 19 right here, and I would say that 10mm slide is, geez, it's a good, like, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch wider or something like that. So the downside to that is I've got to get like all new holsters and everything for it. So I'll figure out, what kind of a carry system I'm going to do for this. I've actually been looking at, they make these like, I think they're called like a Kodiak carry chest holster. I was looking at those. I kind of like the idea of that for certain types of backcountry stuff that I do. And then I'll probably get a good, like just a Safari Land ALS holster or something like that. But Yeah, I really like it. So I've shot about 100 rounds through it so far, and it definitely recoils quite a bit more than a 9mm, but controllable, no issue at all with it, and shoots nice and tight groups and everything. So pretty excited about that. So I've added a new caliber to my arsenal, the 10mm Glock 20. I think it's a Glock 20. Yeah, it's a Glock 20. And I just put a Streamlight TLR1HL, which is kind of my favorite Streamlight weapon mounted light. It's that TLR1HL, this Streamlight light, is a really good choice for if you're looking for a handgun light. And one thing about it is they're really reasonably priced. I think about a third of as much as a Surefire, which I run Surefires on a lot. But this is actually also a Streamlight on my Glock 19X. This one I think is a TLR7, which is nice and compact, and I think it's a really good little weapon light for like a carry pistol. All right, what else we got here? So I wanted to show you guys a couple of things that I have found out there the last couple of trips that I was on. But one more question that I got, this was actually a comment that I got a whole bunch of times on my last video. So the last video that I released, I don't know how many of you guys remember this, but there was a scene in that video where I got out of the truck and I went on a little walk and I found an old bottle, and I picked the bottle up and I looked at it, and then I put it back down on the ground and I walked on. And a lot of people, surprisingly, it's so interesting, the thing that some people pick up on, but what a lot of people commented on in that video was that once I touched that bottle and put it back down, like I was littering, right? And several people just, and I don't mean like necessarily like in a mean way or anything like that, but a lot of people commented that I should have picked that bottle up and taken it back. Well, that brought up a really interesting point, because I think that bottle was from the 60s. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't really know how to date like bottles. I'm not familiar enough with 7-Up bottles to know how old that bottle is. But here's the interesting thing is that the question is, in my mind, is when is litter litter and when is litter an artifact? Because here's the thing, the Archaeological Protection Act says that you can't remove anything that's more than 50 years old, that was left or placed on public land more than 50 years ago. So if it's more than 50 years old and it's on public land, it's technically illegal to remove it from public land. So now the interesting thing to think about is like this tin can right here, right? This tin can could easily be from the 30s or the 40s. It's the soldered can. Actually, I don't know that this one is. That this could be a condensed milk can, which would mean it could be a little bit newer than that. But I guarantee you this can is more than 50 years old, right? So technically, picking this can up and taking it out of the forest, if you were to find this in the forest, now I brought this with me, but if I found this right here and took it home, technically that would be illegal. Really, even this can, which is a sanitary can, but these started being made in the 20s. So if I don't know for certain that this tin can is less than 50 years old, then really I shouldn't remove it from the forest. Now, am I saying that I believe 100% that everyone should follow that to the letter of the law 100% of the time? That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, technically, to all of those people who commented about that, is technically it wouldn't have been legal for me to pick up that bottle and take it with me. So I left it there, and I will be honest with you guys, I left it there less because I was concerned about the legality of it and more because as you guys know, I just don't really collect stuff, right? And it's just another thing that I was going to throw that I would throw in my truck and, you know, haul home. And if I did that all the time, pretty soon I would just have boxes and boxes of old relics and bottles and everything. So, but to make a long story short, it's something to think about, especially for those of you like me who are out there really interested in history and stuff like that, is that you do want to be cognizant about what you're taking back, because technically that Archaeological Protection Act says anything greater than 50 years old, you have to leave. You can't remove it from public land. And when you think about it, you know, we're in 2021 now. So that means anything really that was made prior to 1970 or 1971 even is a relic, is an artifact, right? Classifies as an archaeological artifact under the Archaeological Protection Act. So anyway, just throwing that out there. Having said that, I wanted to show you guys a couple other pretty cool things that I found recently. Now, having said all of that, I'm going to tell you guys this I actually found on some really good friends of mine, family I've known for a long time on their ranch. But this, you guys probably can't tell, but this is a massive piece of, well, I mean, it's big piece of fossilized bone. And it's totally solid. I have no idea what kind of an animal that it came from, but I suspect there's probably more of this animal in there. So what I was going to try to do is find out. I know a couple of people, a couple of archaeologists. So what I was going to try to do is see if somebody could identify what kind of an animal this came from, and then potentially we might be able to go back up there. We'll see. We'll see how significant it is, but we might go back up there and see if there's more of this skeleton, more of this fossilized skeleton in there. Oh man. Pepe D's nuts. This is not a Native American Indian bone. Do not even say that, my friend. Do not even say that. Let's see. So Still Here says he thinks it's a thigh bone, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's got some mass to it and everything, but I know you guys can't tell this from the video, but it's crazy how heavy and dense this thing is. And it is literally, you know, it's a rock. It's literally like turned into a rock. So anyway, wanted to show you guys that. Something else that is really cool that I picked up, same ranch, there's a section of an old wagon road, and this is actually what I was looking on, was this old wagon road. I was following it through this big, you know, massive ranch out in the upper country around here. So I was following this part of the wagon road, and I found this mother of pearl button right in the wagon track, which is really cool. But what's so interesting about it is it's not perfectly round, and you can tell, like, I wish you guys could see this, but it's obviously like hand filed, like everything's not perfect on it. And so you can see like the buttonholes were created like with hand tools. At least I guess it's mother of pearl. I don't know, some kind of pearlescent shell thing. So if anybody has any theories about that, but all I can tell you is I found it in a wagon track that probably hasn't had any traffic on it since the late 1800s, let's just say. Probably there was probably no more use on that road after 1890 for sure, and probably more like 1880. And the earliest use of that road was probably around 1845, maybe even a little earlier than that, 1842 something. So I don't know, man. That was one thing, and like something like this that's little. Now that's an area where I have permission to look around, and basically the landowner is really into history too, so I show him all of the stuff that I find, and if there's any of it that he wants. A lot of times I just take pictures of stuff out there. So that was pretty cool. I wanted to also show you guys, I've talked a lot about, and I'm going to go over this one more time, just a reminder for you guys about these cans. So when you're out there kicking around old history sites, look for cans that have this solder in the end of it, right? Cans that have that solder are, generally speaking, going to be older than about 1910 or so. They could be newer than that, but they started phasing out the use of solder and these capped ends in cans. That started being phased out by about 1910. And by about 1920, the sanitary can became the predominant can used. I think by 1922, these sanitary cans, which are basically the kind of cans we have now with a rolled crimped seal, by about 1922, these were the predominant kind of tin can in use. About the only soldered cans after that were condensed milk cans, which actually I suspect this might be because it has a seam on the side, but it's not a soldered seam. So I wanted to just remind you guys of that, because that's why you'll see a lot of times I take pictures and post them on Instagram of these older cans that I find that have the solder in them. That shows me that that site was used. It shows me when that site was used. But one thing that I got to do, and you guys are going to see some more video on this too, is I just recently got access to another permission with a couple of old homesteads on it. And these homesteads are some of the oldest homesteads in my area. Now, one thing is, like out here in the West, especially where I'm at in Oregon, like our history doesn't go back as far. We don't really have hardly any, well, we don't have any colonial history. Are some of our earlier, fur trappers and everything that were through this country was, 1836 maybe, but very, very little. Most of our history here in the area where I live doesn't really start until around 1848-ish or so. That's when there starts getting to be a significant amount of settlement happening in this country. And really it ramps up like around 1860 or so. So having said that, a lot of this country is marginal land. So it got homesteaded after all of the fertile land got homesteaded, which means, again, a lot of the homesteads out in the desert country that I find, those are even homesteaded as late as like 1910, 1917. The Homestead Act was still in place and people were still homesteading land, but by the time 1900 rolled around, all of the good land in this country was already homesteaded. So what got homesteaded after that was the more marginal land that was only really productive or only able to support people because there were a few really moist climate years, about 20 really moist climate years. So having said all that, most of the homestead sites that I find, or a good percentage of them that you guys see, are from that like 1890 on, 1890 and later. And a lot of them are in the, 1900 to 1915 kind of range. Having said that, I just got access to another permission, another ranch that has some really old homesteads on it. And I was out there doing a first look, and what is so cool is two of the homesteads that I looked around at were constructed entirely with these square nails. Now, one thing that's super cool is, I'm going to tell you a little bit about these square nails here, but one thing that's super cool to me is how good of condition they're in. And this is as a result of the desert kind of climate we're in here, right? That these are so well preserved. But I basically grabbed a few loose ones just to show you guys. And one of the things I wanted to show you is these were cut with rudimentary machinery. Okay, so let me go back a little bit. A little bit of a history in nails here. So completely hand wrought nails were made up until about 1810 or so. Around 1810, they started having this machinery, these stamps that were able to stamp out these square nails. So from roughly 1810 to about 1880 or 1890 or so, these were the predominant kind of nails that were manufactured. And they were stamped out of sheets of steel, but then the heads were put on by hand. So what's interesting is if you look at 10 of these nails that are roughly the same size, none of them will be exactly the same, and the heads are different on all of them. So what's super cool is that these two homesteads that I found out there, that I started to scout out there, made entirely with square nails, which tells me chances are, and I know this also based on the history a little bit, they were built prior to 1880. So these are going to be some of the oldest homesteads in my kind of central range that I run in. So one of them just has an amazing story. It was a family, an Austrian family that immigrated to the United States. They started this homestead. I've been able to find a little bit of history out about it. They raised 11 children. Just heard an animal right off the hill over there. Anyway, they raised 11 children in this homestead. There's the main homestead building, and there's about 4 or 5 outbuildings there. So I've just done some initial surveying of it, but here's the thing is I can go back, metal detect that homestead. I can search through it. It's on private land. If we find something really cool, we can check it out. I can show you guys. So what I'll probably do is sometime in the next couple of weekends, I'm going to head in there and do a camping trip and probably spend a good solid 2 days really looking over that. So little show and tell and a little history on the nails. Out here in my part of the country, it's rare to find homesteads that were constructed completely with a square nail. So that was really, really exciting. So man, I just really stoked about. And I know this probably seems like silly stuff to a lot of you guys, but this fossilized bone, this pearl button here, these square nails, man, a lot of really cool stuff. One thing that I also wanted to tell you guys about these square nails that's pretty cool is that, so remember I showed you how good a condition this nail is in? So the metallurgy of these square nails is a little bit different than when they started making the wire nails. So one thing that's really interesting is here's a square nail that I pulled out of a homestead. This nail was pounded into that homestead somewhere around 1880, right? Now here's a round nail that I pulled out of another homestead in the same general area, but this homestead was built in 1917. Now look what crappy condition this round nail is in. It's rusted almost completely away. Then you look at that square nail and look how pristine it looks. So it's just interesting to note that when they started making what they call wire nails, because they were cut out of these long runs of wire, heavy gauge wire, when they started making wire nails, they started using a different type of steel, and a type of steel that doesn't hold up nearly as well. So a lot of these round wire nails, are starting to look like this after 100 years-ish or whatever. Whereas, here's a square nail that's pushing 140 years old that was driven into a board 140 years ago that's still in really good condition. I mean, you could drive this nail today again. So anyway, I think that stuff's pretty cool. One more thing, I got a ton of questions about this, so I wanted to show you guys. Let me look at the time here, make sure. Oh yeah, we're doing just perfect. Barely over an hour, man. Life's good when we're having a good time, right? A lot of questions about, I put some posts up as I recently got my ham license, so it's official now thanks to Ted, Black Pearl Voyager. If any of you guys are interested, you can go find Black Pearl Voyager on Instagram. He does these ham licensing classes over in Malala, over on the west side of the mountains, or as we call it, the wet side. Still here. Thank you, my friend. So still here, threw in some money for bullets for that 10 millimeter, which is a good thing because that is a one downside to 10 millimeter. Well, actually, I was going to say the one downside to 10 millimeter is that the rounds are really expensive. But right now, I think they're actually cheaper than 9 millimeter, and I don't even know if you can find 9 millimeter. So awesome, thank you, still here. So since I got my ham license, I mentioned that, and that brought up a lot of questions. I always get a lot of questions about comms, but I've had several people ask me what ham radio that I use. So this is a Baofeng UV5R, and this is the upgraded one. This is the 8-watt model. So these Baofeng 5R variants can be had all over Amazon. They're probably in the ballpark of like 30 to 50 bucks, depending on which model you get. There's all kinds of programs out there for them. The Chirp software works with them. They're just a great little, I mean, for the money, you can't hardly beat them. And like this radio, I was talking to Black Pearl Voyager a couple of weekends ago. He was out here camping. You know, we were 25, 30 miles away from each other out in the middle of the desert, but we were getting off of a repeater. One nice thing about these ham radios out in this country is, well, not right here where I'm at in the forest, but out in the desert country where I roam a lot, is that flat, wide open country. There's a couple of repeater towers on some of the prominent buttes out there, and you can actually get pretty good, some pretty good connectivity out there with them. Just going to see if anything is... So I'm just going to turn this on. We'll leave it... Whoa. So that's a round mountain repeater. So I'm not quite getting it. Somebody's broadcasting something off of that repeater. Let's go to the Grizzly Mountain VHF repeater. Yeah. So anyway, that's the ham radio. This is the Baofeng UV5R. Good little radio, especially a good starter one. I'm kind of trying to decide. I want to get a higher power unit, one for the pickup truck and one for the Jeep. So I'm trying to figure out kind of which one to get right now. And then I'm probably also get a little bit, upgrade the handheld unit too. So anyway, man, thought I would show you guys that. Let's see what else I have on here. So I can't remember. I have a note here. I had someone ask me, so this is another YouTube channel. Another YouTuber out there had actually asked me a question about a place called Dominic Well. And if my buddy Tucker is on here, he's been to Dominic Well. I sent him there. But anyway, the YouTube channel Oregon Explorations, you guys look them up, give them a follow. Cool channel. Another guy out there interested in history had gone to Dominic Well and asked me if I knew anything about the history of Dominic Well. Mark Taniguchi, my friend. Excellent. I like it. The Syndicate Protection Fund. Perfect, man. So I don't know a lot about that Dominic Well, but what I do know is that it was originally part of, and you guys have seen me mention Bill Brown in some other videos. I did one video kind of where I went into a little bit of the history of Bill Brown. He had one of the largest horse empires out in the eastern Oregon country for a long time. So that Dominic Well and the homestead that's there was originally part of Bill Brown's holdings out there. About 1920, Dominic Vergas, that's why it's named Dominic Well now, Dominic Vergas acquired it from Bill Brown when Bill Brown had started to lose all of his holdings and divest himself of them. He was liquidating things to basically, fund things. So Dominic Vergas got it, and that was about 1920, and it became one of his line camps. So Dominic Vergas was another rancher out there, and it became one of his line camps. So There's also the thing that's really interesting about Dominic Well, and very few people know this, is actually right by that homestead there's a thing called Dominic Fisher. And Dominic Fisher is like a mini crack in the ground. And I'm going to throw this out here, maybe because I'm never going to get around to it. I used to think someday I was going to go excavate that fissure down there, because that fissure has been used as a trash dump, I think, as long as that homestead's been there, or maybe even earlier. There's a whole bunch of homesteads out there, and I think they used that fissure as a dump for a long time. So Dominic Fisher is really close to Dominic Well, and there's probably 130 years worth of trash and bottles and all kinds of cool historic stuff down in that fissure down there too. So I don't know, if anybody's ambitious and wants to poke around down there, you might find some cool stuff. So anyway, that is that. All right, what's coming up? So couple of my buddies, John and Mike and Kevin, and I think Kevin's dad, these are the guys that I'm working on the Blue Bucket Gold trip for. Those guys went out and did a scouting run this weekend. I did a scouting run last weekend. We'll be doing our first expedition. I can't remember the date, but that's coming up and not too much further. So we're going to be actually going out. In fact, let me see if I can find, because I'm looking on Instagram right here. Hang on, guys, bear with me. All right. Go check out this YouTube channel, or this Instagram right here, Central Oregon Adventure. That's my buddy John. He's one of the guys on that crew who were working together. He was just out there around the area where we're going to do our first expedition this weekend. And then also go check out Occasional Overland on Instagram. That's Mike. He's another one of the guys on the crew. We're open to pulling other people in as we continue to kind of work on finding this Blue Bucket Gold. But anyway, we've got our scouting trips in. We've got a lot of the pre-work done, a lot of the research done. So now we're just chomping at the bit to go for our first expedition. And yeah, so I think that's the big thing. I'm super excited about getting up and doing some metal detecting and really some thorough surveying of these old homesteads where these square nails came out of. So you guys will see some videos on that. Yeah, man, and then just looking forward to getting out and doing some camping, man. It's going to be a crazy dry year here, but I think that's about what I got for you guys tonight. So let's see if there's any comments here before my stomach's starting to growl, man. I'm gonna have to jet out of here and get some dinner here pretty soon. So yeah, I'll chill for just a second. DMR dude wants me to shoot the Baofeng with the 10mm, so maybe I will do that on a future video, because I actually have another one of these Baofengs that has started malfunctioning. So maybe I'll shoot it with the 10mm. Dominic Fisher, Pepe D's Nuts. You gonna go check out Dominic Fisher, man? Hang on, let's see. Caldo Wolf is asking about a group get together. We are going to do a group get together. I promise you guys that. And I'm really, really sorry. I don't want to make my problem your guys' problems or anything like that, but I've got some scheduling issues. I've actually got some, and again, yeah, I don't even want to say it, man. So you guys just got to promise me that you're not going to worry about it. It's not a big deal, but I have some little kind of a medical thing that I need to deal with that I'm trying to get all of that stuff scheduled right now. And until I get that scheduled, I just really can't put any dates out there with any degree of certainty for anything like the group trip. So hopefully I'll have all this stuff sorted out in kind of the next month or so, and we'll be able to get a date on the calendar. But just know, you guys, that, man, I want to get out on a group trip with you guys so bad. I've been dying to do that. I was really, really disappointed that last year I couldn't make that happen when COVID rolled around and everything. So just know that I want to see that happen as much as you guys do, and I'm doing everything I can. And I apologize. I know you guys keep asking me, and I know I've been saying that we're gonna for a long time, and so I just please accept my apologies and know that I want to make that happen as much as you guys do, and I will as soon as I can. Yes, yeah, Tucker was saying, I know everybody wants to see me crack off that that 10 millimeter a little bit, but you might have to wait until next week. Let's see. All right, man. So Scott M, thank you, my friend. When is the next meetup? So yeah, what I'm hoping is worst case scenario. Scott, thank you for the contribution for sure, my friend. But yeah, what I'm thinking is worst case scenario, the meetup will be in the fall, like September. But I'm really, really hoping that I can get everything else lined out and make it happen earlier than that. So I just want to do it as soon as I can. So Tom is asking if I got the vax. I did not get the vax, man. And I don't know that I'm going to. Still here. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. There definitely are going to be, there definitely are a few of those. So I really appreciate that help, man. But let's see. Mike S. How's it going, my friend? Nate Zoinks, hey buddy. Good to see you here, man. We're gonna have to make a trip together one of these times, huh? Let's see, Scott Settler, 10 millimeter. Oh no, they keep disappearing before I can read them all. Let's see. Oh yeah, man. DJ Hobbies and Overland, thank you, my friend. You have a good evening too. Caldo, thank you for the support, my friend, as always. Jackie, appreciate it. Jacqueline is so generous. She threw out there if I needed a nurse, she was happy to help. So, all right, hopefully it won't come to that. Yeah, man, amateur outdoors. How's it going? Yeah, no worries, guys. It's not a big deal. It's just something that's got to be taken care of, and it's going to, take a little bit of scheduling and everything, with COVID and everything. All the stuff in the whole medical system is all, backed up and everything. So it's just made it more complicated, but it's all good. I don't want nobody to be worrying or anything like that. It's not a big deal, man. This is gonna be just fine. I just got some scheduling stuff that has to get worked out. All right, man. Scott says you're out, my friend. My name is Jeff. All right, you guys. Well, I am out of here, man. I got to start getting my stuff packed up and head back to town, get some dinner. But I really appreciate you guys hanging out, man. Thank you so much for all the contributions tonight. You guys are awesome. Really enjoy these camp talks. Really enjoy hanging out with you guys. As always, please leave questions in the comments down this video after I sign off from it being live. Then you guys leave questions in the comments, man. These camp talks are our opportunity to hang out together. So I'm down for talking about whatever you guys want, man. So leave it in the comments down below. DM me on Instagram if you guys have questions or ideas or topics or things like that, man. Just know that yeah, that's really like these are all about us getting a chance to hang out together. This is like my time with those of you that have been, my biggest supporters, my longtime followers and everything. A lot of you guys are, you're my friends. I love seeing you guys every couple of weeks. So I hope you guys keep enjoying these things. And yeah, man, everybody stay safe, stay well out there. And I hope you guys have some amazing adventures of your own out there. And I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Until then, guys, Coyote Works out.